the public employee performance evaluation for our executive director pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B. Do I have to restate it? Okay.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so prior to this, we had our closed session where we discussed the executive director's performance evaluation and pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B, and there is nothing, no action to report out per the Brown Act. And with that, we move now to our open session. On our consent agenda are 2 items, 1A, 1B, our minutes, as well as an invoice for ESA. And so I look to our public to see if there is any comments on our, hold on, if I could just look. And I see no hands raised. And so bring back to the committee, to the board. Does anyone have any questions or comments or a motion?
So moved.
I see, okay, that was Chappie. Do I have a second?
Second.
And Nisa? I hand it over to you, Auden.
Okay, Abakoga.
Aye.
Abakoga, aye. Constantine.
Aye.
Constantine, aye. Sayak.
Aye.
Sayak, aye. Flagger.
Yes.
Flagger, aye. Jones.
Aye.
Jones, aye. And Klein.
Yes.
Klein, aye. With 6 ayes, the motion carries.
Thank you. So now we move to item 2, which is on our general membership event. Hi, Gary, just catching you up. I did report out already and we finished consent, and so we're now on item 2.
Great, thank you.
So we thought we'd bring this back to the executive committee, just given all the changing dynamics with regard to COVID. We thought we'd have a discussion and hopefully make a decision on how to proceed with the December event. Last time we talked about it, Andy and I were looking at some outdoor events that may give us money back. But before committing any further and working on this, I wanted to catch and gather a pulse of the group.
Typically, we have about between 60 and 100 people attend the events. I don't know what that would be like during COVID. Really, we just wanted to see everyone's comfort level about planning a fun event when we haven't met in person yet. But that doesn't mean that our event isn't important. I think that Mariko and I both just felt that, yeah, we needed to have a real conversation about how we feel about.
Nisa?
So I support having a social event in December. Hopefully things don't get worse, but if they do, we should have the ability to cancel and get our money back if there's a down payment. As a couple of you know, we had the Filoli event for the Peninsula Division a couple of weeks ago, and it went well. And the feedback was, it was so good to see everybody in person. Everybody just wanted to talk and socialize. And I know Los Altos is having an outdoor event in 4 weeks. I think Sunnyvale, Larry, you guys are having your State of the City. I know Liz Gibbons. So I think people are figuring out, cities are figuring out how to do things outdoors. And so I would support doing an event in December.
Okay. Larry?
And I agree. It's like, I think it would make sense as long as we can think that if we have to cancel, we can get the money back. I think that's the critical thing. From our city standpoint, we're planning about 100 person State of the City at the beginning of October. But that being said, it's difficult. And as far as, yes, we haven't met in person yet. From a cities association standpoint, we might have to be doing that coming October, the way things are looking. So, but I don't think that's the be all end all. I think it is a social event, and it's kind of good, especially after almost 2 years of not seeing each other, to be back in person.
Auden?
Yes, I just wanted to offer the information that the venue that we are looking at in Los Gatos doesn't allow refunds, but they do allow you to postpone the event to another date and still have the deposit that you make be held for that later date.
Yeah, and so I think we were looking at the Campo de Bocce because it did have an outdoor space, but given that we tend to move locations with presidency, we may have to. It sounds like we will reconsider that space because it doesn't make sense to reschedule at a different time. And so, next question: the polls on outdoors. I know outdoors makes everyone feel a little bit comfortable, but it will be December. So if we are able to find a place outdoors, well, let me first ask this. I don't want to prejudge. How is that a make or break for people? Indoors versus outdoors? Margaret?
I think it'll just give everybody more comfort if it's outdoors. So I was gonna suggest maybe, I know we've done dinners, but maybe we do a brunch or a lunch or something, during the day outdoor, if it has to be outdoors. The bocce ball thing, the only thing I was thinking of was if you have to touch the balls. I don't know if people feel comfortable with that. So
No.
maybe, yeah, something where we're not sharing things. Maybe equipment might be a good.
And actually, I had not thought about brunch or maybe switching it up so where it's outdoors, but during the day. So thank you for that. Chappie.
I was just gonna actually Margaret just pretty much captured it. Personally, I don't have a problem being indoors, but I have a feeling that there's a large number of people who would not feel comfortable. So whatever we do should be outdoors, and because it's in the colder time of year, if we can do something when it's at its warmest, like midday, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, would probably be would be good. So that's my feedback.
Andy and Auden, since we, and actually Laurel too, since we rely on you to actually help us with logistics, any specific questions?
No, one of the other things that when we were talking to the bocce place, they serve buffet style, and I thought that was also a problem. So trying to find something that accommodates. I know there's a few parks and wineries, but investigate to see what those options are as well.
Okay. And so what I'll do is I'll also, I'm sorry, Laurel, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to suggest that with registration, we might be able to do a box meal. And so that way everybody has their designated food and drink and that sort of thing. So I think there are some options so that people can be safe and still enjoy time together. Thank you.
Thank you. Anissa?
I'm going to wear my treasurer's hat and not to throw water on this, but we do have budget constraints. And so I'm assuming whatever we had budgeted earlier this year, or was it last year, at the beginning of the fiscal year, this would fall within that amount. I definitely support doing something, but we do have a limited budget, as you all know.
Absolutely. And that's what we're definitely staying within those parameters. And I think what we'll do next, and that's why we didn't want to, we didn't even consider a place that wouldn't give us a refund. So I think based on this feedback, Andy and Auden and I will retool our thinking and look at some outdoor in December during the day. And I kind of like the idea of a breakfast or a lunch. It's different. So, okay. Thank you. Andy, any other questions?
Nope, we'll get creative.
Sounds good. Okay, next agenda item, the committee reports. It's been some time since we heard from the committees. I know it's been difficult logistically getting things together, but we thought we'd hear from all of you and see if there's anything we as a group wanted to pursue in the remaining months for the school year, for the calendar year. And so Margaret, if you could go first.
Thanks. I don't have much to report. I did reach out. So my committee consists of Carmen Montano and me. So I reached out to Carmen and she suggested maybe what we do is first try to get more volunteers onto our committee. So I don't think we're going to have be able to do a presentation this year since we're running out of time. But But yeah, I think at the next meeting, I'll just ask for more volunteers. We'll start
Okay.
from there. Thanks.
Thank you. Larry, for housing?
Yeah, so we had the presentation earlier this year. I think the planning collaborative, I think, is the biggest focus right now. And at some point, giving an update back to the cities association on, where that progress is. Those outreach meetings are going on right now, but I'm not sure if we'll do anything before the end of the year as far as that's concerned. But that, I think, looking at the time we have left, I think that the only thing would be maybe an update on where that planning collaborative stands, because I do think highlighting that effort and continue to highlight that effort is critical for all of our cities. So I think that's the number one priority.
Andy?
Just wanted to remind everyone as well that there'll be that Mountain View has invited the board to come and tour next Friday. Their Project Homekey.
Life moves.
Yes. I keep forgetting the name of it. And so that's next Friday. And Auden, I'll have Auden send out another message. We were limited to the number of people that could tour. So, and I know that some people already have toured. So
what kind of response have we had on that, Andy?
I'll have to ask Auden. Auden is the keeper of that survey.
No problem. Just checking. Thank you.
Auden, do you know how many people have responded? I don't know if Auden hears me.
I hear you. Sorry. I am doing that right now. We weren't full the last time that I checked, and so I said that we could open it up to non-board members at that point. If y'all have other members of your council who are interested in attending.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to resend it out, we can forward it to our council members. So
That would be useful, because I'm currently working with them, and if there's already a planned tour, some of the council members that haven't went, I know might be interested. So thanks.
thank you, Larry. And Chappie, for racial justice, I know we had, because of time constraints, we had to cut their presentation in half. And so just an update on when you would like to continue the second half.
Unmute.
I hate it when I do that. So what I just said was brilliant. So for racial justice, because of limited bandwidth and the time we've been spending on the ad hoc committee, which translates to Rania not having the bandwidth to focus on racial justice, that we're proposing to move it to October, where we'll do a full presentation and readout.
Okay. And I'm going to pad Laurel's back, because we brought the recommendations already to our council and it passed. So yay for us.
Okay. There you go. Congratulations.
And since I have both Chappie and Larry unmuted, any updates on ad hoc?
So for the ad hoc, you should have received or just received the report that we put together. And obviously you haven't had a chance to read it. So I'm just going to give you some of the highlights, and then you can spend the weekend with a nice glass of wine reading the more detailed part of the report. But the bottom line is that we're recommending that the Cities Association consider continuing to support the roundtable as its fiscal agent if certain conditions are met. One condition is the payment of all outstanding invoices related to expenses that were incurred on behalf of the roundtable, and that unresolved issues are resolved around governance and Brown Act, fiscal responsibility and operations, personnel time management, legal human resources, and a viable exit strategy that's mutually agreed upon. That would include the creation of a updated fiscal sponsorship agreement, schedule of fees and agreement of services, a new MOU, revised bylaws, rules of engagement, guiding principles, code of conduct, hiring of a program coordinator to support the roundtable, and then again, a termination agreement. If all of these requirements are met, our vision would be for legal counsel to draft final documents that could be presented to the board of directors by the October 14th meeting. So that's our recommendation, and looking for executive board input.
Rich?
Great, thank you, Chair. Regarding the report, the one thing, well, there's several things I have a question on, but the one thing, it sounds like that if the roundtable settles their fiscal issues, that is something that then we would allow them back in. And that should not be, in my mind, it should not be a requirement, because we're asking them regardless to settle their affairs with us. So that's something that I just have I guess an issue with, because it just sounds like, well, if we're not going to be allowed back in, then we're not going to pay. When that should not be a stipulation. It's something that they need to pay their bills because we've asked them to, and we think they're responsible to.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't know how a better way to phrase our recommendation to incorporate what you just stated, Rich. I agree with you that they should pay the obligation. We were just focused on the requirements to continue as their fiscal agent, which doesn't preclude their obligation to pay those bills. So if there's a better way for us to phrase it, let me know. But we were just focused on the requirement to continue to be the fiscal agent.
Understand.
Nisa?
Thank you. And first, of course, thanks to the ad hoc committee. I know you both have been very busy, and this was not an easy assignment. So the timeline, so two things. The timeline on these conditions is not clear to me. So are we saying the bylaws, hiring personnel, like all these different things that you listed would first have to be in place before we agree to being their fiscal agent? And if the answer to that is yes, we all know that takes time to do all those things and get those things finalized.
Right.
So is the recommendation that in the interim, while they're putting all this package together to meet the conditions, that we would continue to be their fiscal agent? And if the answer to that is yes, I would strongly recommend we have a very short rope on that about, they have 2 months to do all these things. And if they fail to do it, then we won't be their fiscal agent, because these things can take a long time. And I think if there's no pressure for them to get it done, that they won't get it done. And so we would just continue to be their fiscal agent. Another condition that I think is very important, and a learning from what we're going through right now with asking the round table to pay us back or to cover the legal investigation and other fees, is there has to be a condition in the MOU and something that they accept, that if the Citizens Association incurs any bills related to the roundtable, that it will come out of the roundtable. So we don't have to do this dance again, where they're saying, oh, we have to take it to our own board to decide if we pay you back or to cover these costs. So, I mean, we could all go on and on, but those were the two things that came to mind as I was listening, and I haven't read the report yet. I'm just looking at it. So if you could just address those, that'd be great.
Yeah, so in any agreement would have those types of requirements in them. I totally agree. I think, well, I know that the major issue in the past has been gray, or at least in some people's minds, it's been gray. And so we need to have all of that documented in writing, the rules of engagement and who's responsible for what. So yes, that would be in the documentation. As far as the timeline is concerned, we're saying October 14th. Several of these documents have already started to be worked on. So it's not that we're starting from scratch. And I want to have that deadline of October 14th. And, obviously, as we meet as an executive board, the week before that meeting, we can do a check-in and see where we are. And if we want to extend that date, or if we want to hold firm on that date, we can make that decision at that time. But I want to have a hard and fast deadline so that we can get this stuff done. And we're not in that gray area of, extending it for a month and extending it for another month
Right.
while these issues still exist.
Margaret?
Thank you. And thank you, committee, for working on this. I haven't had a chance to read the report. I just tried to skim through it, but I
You need
do
to, when you drink, you have to drink some Chardonnay when you read it.
it'll look better, huh?
Yeah.
So I agree with Rich. I don't know how to word it, but, and it may be just a timing thing, but I want to make clear that, we want them to pay us back regardless.
Right.
And so just to, clarify that it's not automatic that if they pay us back, we're going to bring them in. That I guess, we should still get to vote on whether we want to continue as their fiscal agent. So regardless, they need to pay us. I'd say if they don't pay us, then there's no, it's a non-starter. But
Right.
if they do pay us, we still have the right to decide if we want to be their fiscal agent or not.
Right.
And then I do agree with Nisa. I think timeline is important. October 14th sounds good if it's doable. My concern too was about cost, and all of these documents I really do think should be looked over by legal counsel, and that costs money, and we don't have the money right now. So at this point, though, I actually think that we should be able to say something like in the bylaws or wherever it is, that there should not be any costs incurred by the cities association for the conduct or the operation of the roundtable. And then I want to make sure it's included in there that we will be charging a fee for being the fiscal agent. So it should be cost neutral and cost neutral. And, we should be able to recoup our costs from them.
Totally agree.
And so to, just in terms of timing, the next meeting, the first issue at hand, and I think that what I heard from the full board meeting was we need to settle the bill reimbursement. And so that's the first question for the next meeting. And so Chappie and Larry, if you could provide an update, I know the roundtable's having their board meeting on the 7th. If you could provide that and we agendize that discussion, I think it's a fairly yes or no. And then once we have that once we have that answer, then we could begin a discussion of how to agendize the following meetings. In terms of cost, Gary is not working on anything roundtable related unless there is reassurance that his time will be billed to the roundtable. And so I know one of the issues that we have discussed in the past is JPA. And again, per what our priorities are and per the guidance that we've given Gary, he's working on the priorities that we've identified for him. So unless there's anything, unless anyone has anything different, that's how we'll move forward. Okay, thank you, Chappie and Larry. Larry, you've been quiet. Anything you'd like to add?
No, Chappie, and I want to thank Chappie and especially Rania for doing a lot of the work behind the scenes here. That has got us to where we are today as far as summarizing our discussions and, doing the hard work of getting it all down on paper. So, but it has been an effort, and hopefully things will go smoothly. We'll see, where we are next week at the board meeting. But in general, I think the process has been good, and I understand the needs for the timeline and the need for making sure that the fees that we have been paying out or our costs that we've incurred are being paid. So I think we hear you, and I think the ad hoc overall understands. So thanks.
Thank you. And if I could just add one more before I turn to Gary, if we could just make it absolutely crystal clear, the budget that is being presented to the roundtable next week is not the cities association's budget prepared for them. And so I think
that's a nod in all caps.
yeah, I've seen several emails that and it has to be crystal clear. This is not a cities association budget.
It is not a cities association budget.
Thank
It's a
you.
draft
Gary?
budget that we help the roundtable with, but it's their budget.
Absolutely. Thank you. Gary, I saw you raised your hand, and then Andy.
Yeah, I was going to suggest perhaps some language, and perhaps this would be for the next agenda or the at least for the staff report. And I want to make sure I'm capturing it correctly. Would be that a condition precedent to the cities association entering into negotiation for these various documents is full payment of all outstanding reimbursements related to the roundtable. So that we need to have the check before we start the negotiation, and my clock starts running, and Andy's, and anyone else who's involved.
Thank you for providing language. And so definitely, I'm going to capture that, and I'm going to include that for our September meeting, and we'll have that in the document. So, Andy, you had your hand raised.
I just want a clarification on at the September meeting, we're going to agendize, and I mean, we're going to talk about the agenda again, but as we're talking about the ad hoc, we're going to ask for a basic yes or no update from the roundtable, whether they voted to reimburse or not. That was number one.
Correct.
Will there be an ad hoc committee report as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then the third, Andy, is the suggested language from Gary.
Great, I've got that.
Nisa.
Just to clarify the suggested language from Gary, which I think is great language on the spot. But the other end of it is, let's say they don't, because we're making it a trigger to start even considering negotiations. But if they don't pay that amount, and therefore we can't start negotiating, making them remaining the fiscal agent, where does that leave us from a relationship perspective? Because we're still their fiscal agent. Like, I'm putting on my roundtable hat. And if it just means the Cities Association will continue to be the fiscal agent, then there's really no incentive to pay the amount, if you're following me, Gary. Because we're saying, pay this amount, then we'll start negotiating these terms and conditions. Let's say they don't pay. What does that mean?
Well, are you directing a question to me?
Yes, I want to clarify the language you're proposing.
Right. Well, I mean, this is now becomes a policy decision of the board, of the executive board. The second piece would be, then the cities association will, if they fail to pay, the cities association will determine a process to withdraw as fiscal agent.
I think that's key. I agree. I think we give them a date I think that's how to set it up. So if they don't pay, not only will it not trigger the negotiation, but it also means we're going to vote on whether or not we continue as their fiscal agent. And that's a policy decision, but I think there's a gap that we need to address if they fail to pay.
Okay. And then I see Andy's hand, but before I go there, Andy, is that to answer, or is that to?
Well, I was just, so in the first part about the condition to enter into negotiation is full payment. And then what you're requesting is, if a fail to pay, determine a fiscal agency end date with a date certain.
Yeah.
Okay. So that will help Gary
we
and
have
I
to decide as a board.
Right. And so, Gary, anything in response to that before I go to Margaret?
Well, Andy is absolutely right. I think we're going to have figure out a process to withdraw because it's, I don't think it's like I wish it was. It's not like flipping a switch, I suspect.
Okay. And then maybe the three of us with Laurel can figure out that process before
Yeah.
we post the agenda item. At least to put into the staff report, because it is a full
At
policy.
least conceptually, yes.
Exactly. Margaret?
I was gonna suggest or ask if we can just set a date and say, by December 31st, on December 31st, 2021, we will terminate our role as a fiscal agent. I would like to make this clear. I don't want to get into, we're going to determine how we're going to exit. I think we just need to exit. That's what's been dragging us on forever. So the clearer we can be and the more, definite we can be, I think is important. So in that regard too, although I know we still have to vote on whether we want to continue fiscal agency if they pay their bills. Could we have language, beforehand, so it's clear to the roundtable that any costs incurred by the cities association on setting up the paperwork to continue as a fiscal agent will be paid for by the roundtable, so that they know that they have to pay for this, and we don't need to go back and forth about who's going to pay future bills.
And Andy, did you catch that as well?
I don't think I got all of it, but I also just want to reiterate that the December 31st is in line with the contract that they have for ESA. So it's a good date because it already aligns.
And it's not to say they can't continue. They're just going to have to find another fiscal agent. And it sounds like there are other options. So, I don't think we're just, leaving them on the lurch.
Okay. And then while we're doing that, I'm gonna just say that COVID-19, we've all been listening to it. So as things change, there's nothing really to report other than things are constantly changing on a regular basis. Gary, is your hand up?
No.
Is your pen up?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh,
I
no
was just
worries.
turning the page. Sorry.
No worries. Laurel, do you mind sharing that we have gone full open?
Yes, the town of Los Gatos has opened all of its public service counters. I think we reported that we had our first in-person council meeting on August 17th with great success, thanks to the leadership of our mayor. We had contingencies, so we were ready for the anti-maskers, and we were able to turn off cameras and video and audio so they did not get their social media moment. So thanks to the mayor, we had a smooth meeting, and we'll be back in person next Tuesday. Thank you.
Yeah. Would anyone like to report anything else specific to their cities on COVID-19 responses? Okay, and so I'm going to look to the public. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? I see none, and so let's go on to item number 4, which is planning our next meeting. We've talked about how to frame the conversation around the ad hoc. And actually, Andy, I'm going to turn to you to walk us through what is on the.
Oh, okay. So we are not having a legislative action committee meeting. The last day of session is next week, and so we will have a city selection committee. We have just a few appointments. We have an appointment for SourceWise, and I know SourceWise has some really some criteria about who may be appointed. We did not put this on an agenda until we had SourceWise had identified an appointee. And then the OAC, we have South County and West Valley cities that need to be reappointed at this time. So we're just going to take 15 minutes, and I hope that's okay in a virtual world. Question, Larry?
Have we had applications yet, or?
Auden sent out a letter to request those applications. Yes.
And a reminder today, but I just wanted to make sure we had applications.
Yeah, we
Okay.
haven't yet for any of these. And we've also had some confusion with some of our cities about who appoints. So we've been working through that, but I'll make sure, I'll ask Auden to send out another notice as well.
She sent one out like half an hour ago. That's fine. I was
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that we
Okay.
were getting applications and whether or not we need to
Yeah,
beat the, drum up the interest
yes,
from
you can drum up
council
some of the
members.
interest.
Okay, thank you.
We had a few volunteers from cities that in those jurisdictions that were willing to serve, but okay. So then do you want me to move on, Mariko? So then at 7 p.m. the meeting, we do have some requests to present. We may want to work through that because we want to understand how long the roundtable discussion will go. We had a request to present from a new startup company called Pano. And Pano is a company that is working on a panoramic video to quickly geolocate fires. And they actually stopped a fire in they were able to identify the location of a new fire in Santa Rosa in 3 minutes. So this is, they're not looking to sell anything. At this point, it's a really great technology that they're able to geolocate, and then they send off emails to first responders, to everyone where the fire is. Other companies do not geolocate the fire. They kind of know a location that it's in, and it also uses like panoramic. They are looking for co-location with jurisdictions to co-locate on their poles in areas that might be high risk, but they're not. It is a startup company, and I know we usually don't like to have businesses come in, but this seems like a pretty relevant initiative that they're doing. And so we wanted to see if that might be something you were interested in hearing about. I was sent a video link to share with you all, but the video link didn't work. It was protected.
Yeah. Andy, I'll be honest with you, I'm lukewarm on that one.
Okay.
I think the topic is relevant, but I think our time is really valuable now to, basically it sounds more like a marketing or opportunity.
Yeah, well, they're
well, that's the way it feels.
Yeah, but they are looking to geolocate on poles right now, as expanding. They're in the research phase, but that's fair.
You want to keep going?
Yep, I'll keep going. Susan, Supervisor Ellenberg has requested. She's been kind of waiting on our list, and we may decide that we don't have enough time to hear from anyone. And then we also received another request from the Redistricting Commission to make a presentation as well. And that just came in yesterday or this morning. And so I don't have any information to share with you on that. It was County Commission. And then also, so we know the ad hoc wants to present. The planning collaborative, we can always ask them, but they are finishing their Let's Talk Housing. And so having the planning collaborative come back in October may be better as they finish their community outreach. And also just to let you know that the Let's Talk Housing and the Planning Collaborative does have a Facebook page and an Instagram page. And so if you guys are on those social media outlets, that you should find them and help share when they have meetings. And then also we have not heard from any of our city selection committee appointments. I think that our MTC representative would like to present an update. We also may want to hear from ABAG or RWC or OAC. So I just wanted to give those suggestions as well. So we do know want to put on the ad hoc And so really, how much time do you want to have for the roundtable and ad hoc discussion? And that would help identify the rest of the time that you have.
Margaret, real quick. Huh?
Oh, thank you. I was just going to ask if I could do my MTC in October. I need a little time to, I want to do a full presentation, so I need a
Okay.
little time to prep for that.
Okay. So let's move Margaret to October. Right now, are there pressing things with One Bay Area?
They're going through the Plan Bay Area community meeting. I think October 21st is some big, let me look it up, some big date.
Yeah, we
I know
just
there's
lost
something in
Nisa.
October. So I just don't know, is it something where our representatives would want feedback before, or would they prefer to do a report out after? Because I guess, let me just be clear. I think the roundtable could take up our entire 2 hours. It did last time. And I feel like we haven't gotten to any of the priorities we've set out for ourselves. So I'd like to see what other items can we discuss, and then with the time remaining, give that to roundtable. But if we're waiting for October for MTC, we could ask ABAG if there's any updates. But I would like to sprinkle in some work between roundtable discussion.
So Mariko, so I'm looking at the note about Plan Bay Area, and it's Thursday, October 21st at 5 p.m. and ABAG Executive Board to consider Plan Bay Area for final adoption.
So could we ask Liz if she can come in, or I guess
Do you want to do that, or should that be done in conjunction, since it's going to be MTC and ABAG? Would that be better to have her also in October?
Actually, I'm
So
going to
that Margaret is presenting and then ABAG is presenting at the same time.
Does that make sense?
My presentation is going to be purely about transportation issues. So yeah, I don't think it really matters. Although I was hoping for, maybe 20 minutes of, well, maybe not that long, but I'm hoping for a robust conversation on the topic I'd like to cover. So it doesn't have to be too much to do it.
So if it's okay, Andy, if we could just reach out with Nisa and Liz to see if there's something that can be shared next week in preparation for this executive board meeting, that would be nice. Otherwise, we can ask WRC or AL on a discussion. Because all of our other committees, I don't think is ready. So at least, unless we want the planning club, well, no, that should be October as well. So at this point, what I'm going to post to everyone, I'm going to narrow it down. Either we ask a city selection committee member and to attend. For me, the highest priority would be what's going on at ABAG. And then if none of them can attend, we ask Supervisor Ellenberg. And then that gives us something to discuss besides roundtable. How does that sound to everyone?
You're all so quiet today.
I know. And so, okay, so if no one objects, I'm going to open up to public comment and see if anyone would like to just share their thoughts on September's meeting agenda. I see no hands raised. And so it sounds like we're going to have city selection. We're going to ask one of our city selection committee members, and if they can't, we'll ask Supervisor Ellenberg to join us. And then we have a large amount of time for ad hoc. And then I'll work with Gary and Andy to try and provide a staff report that provides as much structure as possible to the discussion.
Mariko?
Yes.
Do we want to discuss how the ad hoc presentation, that being Larry and Chappie presenting, would you like the full joint ad hoc?
Well, I was thinking Larry and Chappie, but you guys have been the ones working on this. So could you share with us how you think you'd like the conversation to go?
I would like to have the full ad hoc so that we can hear from the roundtable as well.
Okay.
And I especially think, yeah, having the chair be part of that discussion. It's much as making the case, I don't want to just go to public comment from that standpoint. And having a presentation that tries to encompass everything to this point is kind of our work, the whole work of the ad hoc and not just Chappie and I.
Okay, so how about, why don't we ask all 5 of you to be present, and that the 5 of you collectively do you think a 10-minute presentation? And then that then gives the other board members the opportunity to ask questions, and then we'll take public comment, and then we can close it to guess and have a full discussion. How does that sound to people? Do you think
Sounds-
a 10-minute
good.
presentation?
10 minutes is good. That
Okay.
works.
Okay, you captured that, Andy?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And then so we'll work with you guys and Rania on any things that we need to include in the staff report. So. Okay, guys. Well, with that, let's move to the next one, which is Ms. Pravetti will provide a city manager's update.
Thank you very much. The city managers continue to meet and talk about COVID-19 issues, reopen mandates, testing mandates. Are really only the county and the city of San Jose have a vaccine mandate, and other cities are exploring the testing. We will be having our monthly city managers meeting next week. And not only is COVID on the agenda, but also we will be talking about police reform. So we'll be able to share our efforts, and hopefully we can also bring in the recommendations from the city association. So there's some alignment and feedback back to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Laurel. And Andy?
I'm good right now. I don't have much to share with you today.
Thank you. And public comment. Okay, well, you guys are very quiet, so I'm assuming you want to have an early Friday so that you can each have your weekends and have the much needed rest that I think everyone needs. So with that, I adjourn today's meeting, and I hope all of you take some time for yourselves and some rest. I think we all need it, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
See you next
you.
week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Every weekend.